Okay. Well, I'm so happy today to be with you. This is Jasin Deegan, and it's such a powerful portal today to have the full moon in Libra, and we were talking about coming together and honoring that, and sort of delving into it, and seeing what arises. Because sometimes when we get together, well, all the time when we get together, something comes through that's really beautiful, powerful, potent, and just a lot of creative energy. So I wanted to sit with you and just have a conversation today. So thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I'm happy that we can still connect in virtual land, even in these times where we have to practice social distancing and quarantine, and we can still find ways to drop in with one another, to connect with one another, and also to create magic and to find the magic and the mystery and the amongst the mayhem, to find the magic and mystery amongst the mayhem. And yeah, so I'm happy to be here, especially on this full moon window. So thank you for
Yes.
setting this up and for orchestrating it.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so great. And thanks for naming that too, that the shift to online, for many of us, we've been working online for a long time, and for some of us who were working in person, now to have online offerings, making this adjustment, getting creative with the ways that we can be in relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're really pointing to something that's really significant about this year's full moon in Libra, just talking about, what does relationship look like in this time, and how do we cultivate deeper relationship, or relationship in unique and new ways. So I think that's also a really relevant time to talk about, those things.
Well, that's all about Libra too. That is the Libra archetype. Is there's one sign in the zodiacal wheel that is all about partnership and union with other. It's Libra, and what I love is I wrote something yesterday where I referred to a quote from Brene Brown, and I just saw this. While I was looking through like my morning inspiration searches and things like that. But this quote just totally compassed that the energy, or at least what I perceive to be the essence of Libra energy. And, Brene Brown defines connection and relationship as being the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can
Mhm.
give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. And
Mm.
for me, that totally encompasses the energy and vibration of Libra, and especially the portals that are opening here in this full moon. And so I think people all around the world, like, if you take the physicality out of it, out of the equation, do we still have relationship? Can we still connect
Mm.
with one another? And fortunately, we live in the 21st century where we can jump on Zoom, or we can have Facebook Messenger, or all of these other mediums and platforms that allow us to see and sense into the connection that transcends the physical,
Yes.
and that, is always there,
Mhm.
whether we can, be 3 feet apart, 6 feet apart, whatever, there's a connection that unifies us all where we can all draw from and come back home to. So,
Yes, so beautifully said. Thank you for sharing the quote and your own way of expressing the unseen and energetic connections that we have. And having done a lot of like remote work, and energy work, and over the phone and over the internet, like I've found that, even working with my therapy clients, I feel just as connected with them over at the internet as I do in the room with them. And I feel like, obviously we've been able to build that rapport over time in person before going online. So I think that helps. But like you said, there's something that we're tapping into that connects us all, that connects us etherically, astrally, right? So I think that's really important, is that we can tap into that even when we're not in the physical. So thank you for naming that so directly. And the other aspect I loved is when Brene Brown was saying that feeling nourished by the relationship. So like I'm feeling into that lunar quality there, right?
Ah.
So that feels, and I have the moon on my ascendant, so it's like the lunar quality is something that I feel. Well, it's in Taurus, so sometimes I feel like they're kind of connected, you know. I'm like comfort, but that's like caretaking, right? The love languages. That's something that's like what I'm thinking about. It's like, oh, okay, that's a way to express our love, and how it might be different for different people based on their own charts. But when we talk about the moon in Libra, I'm thinking like, how do we express love? How do we have the emotion of love and the holding of love, and so that's what comes to mind for me too.
Well, and what another beautiful thing about Libra is that in the Tarot and the cosmology of the Tarot, Libra manifests as the archetype of justice, and it's the card 11, and 11 from a numerological standpoint is that portal, that gateway, right? And with justice being the 11, it's the gateway into the sovereign self. And Libra
Yes.
is all about who am I, and what do I have to share with consensus reality? How can
Mm.
I be my authentic self in partnership and union with other? Whether that's a friendship, a romantic lover, a spouse, family, community, the world around us. How can I show up as me and contribute? What unique gifts and presence do I have within myself to share with the collective and the world? And right now, especially at this time where we can't physically, meet in coffee shops or go out to eat or have the physicality of relationships, um, we're really being presented an opportunity to look at this in a whole new way, to shine light on what it means to be authentic beings. Like, who are we? So it almost says, um, you know, I've talked to a lot of people who have shared with me that, these last couple of weeks, they've really noticed how they use, getting together with friends or together with, partners or whatever, it almost as a distraction, from, dealing with the things that are going on inside of them, and so with the quarantines and with that distraction kind of collectively put off the table, so to speak, we're having an opportunity to really go within and to look and to find the things about our unique essence that really are golden nuggets, and that we have to share with the world. What is
Mm.
our love vibration? I love it that you brought in the love language, but what is our love vibration, and what frequency can we add and bring to the harmonization of the universe? So what's all
Yes.
Libra? So
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that you bring in this dynamic between self and other, like sovereign self and sovereign other, and then like how do those interplay?
mhm.
Because I work with so many people, whether it's in more the Akashic work and multi-lifetime healing, or in the therapeutic sense, where it's about relationships and these dynamics of relationships. How do we find that authentic self, and I keep going to my power chakra, keep going there and being like, yeah, feel it in the belly, the fire in the belly. And then also, my Leo energy too, kind of tapping into that and saying, okay, how do we do that in a way that it's like it's fully shining oneself and sharing the gifts that one has, and then also that being an invitation for others to bring themselves fully into the dynamic too, not people overshining other people or people feeling like they're not good enough, or because all of that stuff arises when we're being challenged to be our true selves and bring forth. And that's what we said even before we got on the call. This is the time we're being called up to do exactly that. This is the time that we've all been preparing for lifetimes, and in this lifetime too of our own initiations. So I think you're really speaking to something. It's like, what does that mean in relationship? And I'm getting the feeling too about this. It's the relationship to self. It's the relationship to other, in partnership, in collaboration, in a community, and with the earth. So I'm getting all of these levels of relationship, but from that place of being connected to yourself.
Um,
Yeah.
well, and to go back to the archetype of the Justice card and the Tarot, the Justice in a lot of traditional Tarot decks have the figure of the judge, and the judge is this androgynous kind of man-woman union of the two genders or the two polarities. And they're holding the sword and the scales, so
Mm,
that they know, what works for them and how to bring balance and harmony into their own life. Not how to have, my friend or my partner or my family bring balance to me, but how to be a self-actualized sovereign being and come into all of those relationships with our community, our family, our connection to the earth from that sovereign place, from that connected place where it's no longer about what can you do for me, but it changes the conversation from, what can you do for me to what can we create together? How can your specific love vibration, your specific harmonization merge with mine and create what a lot of people talk about as the sacred third, and I
mm-hmm,
feel that tension that you talked about earlier, like between self and other, self and other, self and other, like what that is the tension where that sacred third can come forth,
mm-hmm,
and it's that higher vibration of relating and being in union with other people, with other places, with other things, and with ourselves and with the planet. And for me,
mm-hmm,
that I think is one of the largest initiations that are happening at this time within the zeitgeist and upon our planet right now, especially when we're looking at, the healthcare system,
mm-hmm,
like how other people are receiving healthcare, especially in these turbulent times, and how healthcare really, I really believe should be available for everyone, regardless
mm-hmm,
of, who they are, where they come from, and, where they fall on any spectrum. Healthcare should be totally available and accessible. And that's one of the Libra mysteries, is, bringing these resources, bringing these tools. Your desire to do these Zoomcasts is such a Libra essence. There's a Libra
mm-hmm,
influence where it's like, yes, let's connect the people with the people, or connect people with their people, so to speak, so that we
mm-hmm.
can find these connections, these resources, and make them more available. So
Mm, mm. I love that. I love that. When you were sharing about justice, I mean, the name in and of itself is that there's some principle of integrity and right service and right words and and right action, and there's something about the alignment that I'm feeling into. And then of course you said like sword, so I'm like Archangel Michael. So between the balance and then that sort of connection to the internal alignment, right? And I'm getting discernment too as part of that, like as a function or a tool to help us navigate relationship. um that, and I also have Saturn Mercury, so that's part of it. But yeah, that really feeling into this idea of justice. And when you say healthcare for all, I feel that, and I feel like let's reform, let's revolutionize healthcare such that it isn't disease management, that we're actually talking about cure. We're talking about prevention and cure. So back to the medicines of the earth, back to prevention, including energy work and spiritual healing as part of what's covered in insurance, or maybe not capitalism at all, but some other form where people get what they need and want. So I know this is a time um, of realizing that the systems that are in place aren't serving everybody. And so when you said the word justice and you said, relationship, that's what I'm thinking about too in this time, is like, how are all of the dominant paradigm structures being challenged, and then are the veil being lifted so that
mhm.
we're seeing the flaws in these systems that maybe, and many of us have been talking about this for a long time, but many people are really seeing like this isn't working, these old structures aren't working. So how can we get creative about creating something new that actually serves and honors everybody's needs? And when I think of the word need, I think of the moon too. It's like the sort of the mother and child relationship, the container, the vessel, but also like what is needed to create container, and what is needed to create like a healthy system, right, of reciprocity.
Well, and how a healthy system, what a healthy system looks like for the variety of all the people, places, things, vibrations, needs, and desires that each and every one of us have,
Yes.
and what I love is, that I really believe that, especially at this time on the planet, we're in a deconstruction of systems. We entered 2020 and again, from a the numerology between of 2020 reduces down to a four.
Mm-hmm.
And in the tarot, the four is the emperor, and he is the card that is very Capricorn energy. It's Saturn energy, and it's all about creating new systems, new structures, new ways of being in the world. And in order for us to do that, we've got to tear them down. Tear down the ones that aren't working. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
redoing your home. You don't build a new kitchen on top of your old kitchen. You have to take the old kitchen out, and discern what you want, what works, what doesn't. Are we throwing out the sink? Are we keeping this kitchen counter, or what? Or are we going to put it over here and make it more
Mm-hmm.
accessible for these this area, or what?
Yeah.
And so I feel like these systems and structures that happen on a global level or even on a collective level, still very much can operate from that very simplistic viewpoint of remodeling a kitchen. And so um, what what's really calling to me, especially with this Libra full moon, and perhaps one of the gifts of the coronavirus itself, is that people, my hope is that people will wake up to the realization that our needs and desires are holistic. We no longer just have a physical body, or a mental body, and fortunately, we've reached a day and age where it's important and recognized as beneficial to exercise, to eat healthy, to practice mindfulness, whether that be from a spiritual level or a secular level or whatever. Those things are really growing in recognition. But to really tune into the emotionality of an individual and what the emotional self is, and also the spiritual self, and how all of those components, the physical, the mental, the emotion, and the spiritual, are needed to create the substance for an individual to thrive in, to create the container that you were talking about, and to build relationship from. We
Mm-hmm.
know time and time again, or at least I do from my personal experience, that if a relationship's just physical, it's probably not going to go very far. It might be fun for a little bit, but it's not going to go much further than the physical realm, unless we can line up or connect on all of those different levels. And so I really am hoping that as turbulent and uncertain and scary these times really are, that I'm really trusting that there are gifts like that, where the recognition of the whole human being comes into play, and that there's more to people than just bodies, numbers, and diagnoses. So
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Thank you. And that's my hope too. And I believe too, and I know we resonate in this, that the way we tell the story, the narrative that gets us through a process of initiation, is very important in kind of guiding and helping the spirit and the soul to feel uplifted and hopeful in these times. And I make a distinction. I always do, because I think it's important that people understand the difference between hope as a bypass and hope as a practice, as a spiritual
mm-hmm.
practice. So, and the languaging around what the coronavirus is, and I know the mystery of it is that it's so many different things to so many different people and to the planet as a whole. And for me, it is an opportunity to connect more and offer more out there online, and to be able to help my clients through this time and myself, and to really, like you said, earlier, like tap into sort of creativity. And I feel like there's something too about the Libra moon energy that feels like it's got a creative or vital energy also. And so this is just from a feeling place, and I don't really have words for it, but I just was like, okay, there's something about creativity here. And I just wanted to see if that makes sense.
Totally does. And I absolutely love your embodied intuition there because a Libra has three different archetypes or three main sub archetypes of the main Libra archetype, so to speak. And, they manifest as the artist, the mediator, and the lover,
Mm,
and all of them, again, are all relational. But the main component of the Libra archetype, whether they're creating art, mediating conversation or being in love and in relationship with another, all comes back to that union of I want to love. I need to love. I have this desire to love and to share this love with others. In fact, I was doing some meditation yesterday or maybe the day before, and I was just dropping into the energy, and I feel like the mantra for this moon, as perhaps as light polarized as it may sound, I feel like the mantra for this is I am love, and
mm,
really boiling back that regardless of race, gender, creed, nationality, or wherever we come from, that at the bottom, at the end of the day, we all are truly related, and we all
mm,
come from that same place of love, and that source of love, and that's
mm,
what we draw upon, and then when we take upon all of these different ego personas or all of these different incarnations and we manifest, that energy, that source energy into this physical dimension, that's when we get to play and create art. We get
mm,
to create beautiful pieces, from being in relationship with other, whether that's, inspirations in society, reaction to society, whatever. It's all of this love energy moving through our bodies to create, again, the sacred third, or the
mm,
other, or something completely different.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just really feeling into that. How enlivening that is to know that at the core, when we're speaking from this place of love, that if that's the place, if that's the authentic place that we come from, then anything that comes out of that is essentially creative. It's essentially like bringing together, right, and not creating separation or division. And that feels really important. I mean, if we look at how many people came together on Saturday to meditate, I mean, look, the Schumann resonance was off the charts. I mean, it was amazing. And speaking of that four energy, that 444, it's almost like we're trying to create new structures, trying to bring it in, and like
Yeah.
everybody coming together in, such a beautiful way. And then Venus with Pleiades, it's just like, it's just such a potent time, I think, for planetary relationship. Like, with the planet itself, but along the whole and around the whole planet, like us connecting and like sending prayers to Italy and China and Germany and everywhere, that it's like as they're suffering in other places, like we're more attuned to places that maybe we hadn't been before, and seeing kind of windows into their lives, and seeing from the balconies, and we have this thing here in the North Bay where it's like about 8 o'clock everybody starts howling and banging pots, and I don't know if that's a whole Bay Area thing or the whole country. I don't know who's all doing it, but it brings
I
people
think it
together.
is. I think it is, and it's making noise and recognition of those people who are out on the front lines and showing up in hospitals and taking
Yes.
care of people who need to be taken care of. It's that, again, that Libra energy of being in relationship and being of self and in service to another. And what I love is that I feel like our earliest ancestors, who were so much more connected to the earth, they had to be in order to grow their food. They didn't have the luxury of having a Safeway or Whole Foods, on every block or whatever, but they had to really know when to plant the seeds and when to water them and when to harvest. And they had to really be attuned to the earth and her cycles and seasons in order to survive. They had to
Yes.
work uh, each and every day of their lives with the elements of earth, air, water, and fire, and to really learn to tune their own spirits into those different energies and to find practices that support those tools and that ability to drop in. And one of the things that for me, I found myself, especially in these turbulent times, is doing more and more earth-based practices,
Mm-hmm.
grounding, centering, breathing, filling myself up with life force energy and trying to fill the spaces or send that breath into the areas of my body where I might feel constricted or tight, just to, help relax that energy and to help to move that. And, one of the things that I think that, our earliest ancestors knew, because if you look at all different mystical traditions, and especially in modern day energy work, we know that time and space don't exist. And so that if I hold an intention in my mind and I'm sending you, loving energy, at some level, you receive that, because
Mm-hmm.
we're energetic beings, we're
Mm-hmm.
hardwired for magic and mystery and all of these different things that our ancient ancestors just innately knew how to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I feel like there's almost this metaphoric stance of kind of what I spoke about earlier of how like we're learning to look at ourselves and how we're in relationship with another when the element of physicality is removed, and
Mm-hmm.
how, you and I can jump on a Zoom call right now and still feel the connection that we would feel in person, but then I can also do that with my friend in Sedona or in Bali or in England or wherever on the planet. And we can know that, regardless of whether we can see physically or touch someone physically, we can still be in relationship with them. We can still send loving energy. And so, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I think is representative of when groups of people come together and they meditate with a shared intention or a shared focus, then, the charts go off the charts, and magic happens and healing happens. And um, there's so much power in relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I can remember one of my teachers always says, she quotes this verse in the Bible where Jesus says, where two or more are gathered, there I'll be, and I'm really feeling into that these days, especially with these times and how important the relationship with others and the relationship with the earth, and those practices are to creating that relationship with yourself.
Yes.
That self relationship is the substance that other relationships grow from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love feeling into this idea of the elemental qualities and rhythms and like how our bodies are that as well. It's like we have all the elements in us and we have our own rhythms and the heart and the menses and and sleep cycles and all of that, that it's like we are nature, right? And sometimes in these modern days we forget that we are the earth, and spirit. So it's like, I think our ancestors and indigenous, lineages, from these cells, this DNA lineage, and from our past lives, that we knew, like inherently, how to be in alignment with that, like because we could feel it, and because we could see it, and we were tracking it, right? And that's one of the things I love about astrology, is that it reminds us of these rhythms, right?
Right.
um, yeah, and so that feels good, that it's like a reclaiming. It's a reclaiming of what's our birthright, and what maybe we have forgotten to some extent, but is never gone from inside of us, that we can, like you said, breathe into it and remember our connection to our bodies and our connection to the earth as that sustenance that you're talking about. And I think that when we, like you said, come together in ritual, whether it's a breath work ritual or a ritual out in nature, um, like for the quarter turns of the year, that there's a way that we're tapping into that across time. And you said Sedona, and it reminded me, I spent some time doing pilgrimage in Sedona, and just like going to these vortex sites where it's like it was timeless. I was able to access like the beings that had come to that spot across time, but also myself across time. And so it's like there is a way to reconnect, and I think in relationship, through the earth, through these practices, and then offering those practices for others, and then for these sacred times of the year, and for healing together. Yeah.
One of my favorite books is Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. And in this book, and it's also a movie, Mitchell deconstructs our stereotypical, our modern day notion of time. And he has these different narrations that are happening all across the timeline, of being like in the 1600s, and then also, in the 1970s, and then also this futuristic society. And as you're reading it, you discover that they're all happening all at the same time, you know. And I really trust and believe that, what Mitchell wrote was actually a download and a transmission about the world that we live in, and how, regardless of time and space, those are all accessible, kind of like what you were talking about, of tapping into the energy vortexes of the people in Sedona, of the people who have been there before, the people who will be there in the future, and then here you are right now. We are the bridge between the past and the future, and those energies are coming through each of us right now here each day, and we can draw upon that's probably why our ancestors venerate their ancestors, to draw upon their strength, to remember the trials and tribulations that they went through. That's one thing that, since all of this has happened, I can remember my Nana, my mom's mom, who is no longer with us, but she would always talk about, living through polio, and the trials of tribulations of polio and the scarlet fever and all of those different viruses or diseases that impacted society on such a collective level. And yet we're still here, And so for me, I feel that the medicine that's in that kind of remembering, it's really intuitive remembering, because I woke up one morning, I was like, wow, my grandmother lived through this. She lived through not just one, she lived through two, and she had both of them, and she still survived. Like, it's comforting to remember that the human spirit and that humanity altogether is resilient, and that, we can come through anything, that we have a will and desire to break through, and we can do that even faster when we come together. It's kind of like that. I think it's an African proverb that says, if you want to go far, go together, and if you want to go fast, go alone, but, where do you want to go? Do you want to cover more territory, or, just burn out after a certain amount of time? And so, again, these are all the energies that I feel are just seeping through and just permeating our field right now. As we sit in this collective initiation, this collective cauldron that just keeps stirring us. So, I'm curious to see where we come from out of this.
Yeah, it is. And having that perspective and that languaging of, like, this is a cauldron, this is like a sacred alchemical vessel of what we're working on as a collective right now. And, the shadow, and, seeing through the systems, and feeling into what's important, and who are we, and what are we here for? Like, all of these really, vital questions. I think that this is the time for that. And I think that, I feel so blessed that I'm sitting here with you today, and we're having this conversation and bringing this through, because I always feel that when we're together, like, stuff just starts coming through, to have that opportunity. So yeah, I just feel really, really good about it. Yeah. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. This has been delicious. I've loved this conversation so much. I mean, I just think we need to do this more often and record it, because, I feel so good after I connect with you. And then, the remembering of, what we talked about, I know is in my body, but I can't remember what I've said, or anything like that. And it definitely is a transmission that happens when, we're together. And that's just super juicy. It's kind of like that quote that Jesus said, when two or more are gathered, there I'll be. And so there's the spirit, the essence, for me, the spirit is love, and that's what runs through each and every one of us. So.
Yeah, that's so true. And I feel that when you're leading breathworks and I'm assisting, I just feel that in the container that we hold. I feel that when you're sharing, whether it's, setting the container, or in your blogs, or any of your other transmissions, the way you bring together the tarot and astrology and the shamanic elements from all of your years of working with Venus rising. I just feel there's such a depth, such a well, right, of connection. And I just really am excited for, you know, you to share also a little bit about some of your online offerings that, you know, if people feel that energy and want to explore more with you, if you could say a little bit about, you know, some of the things that are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do that, I just want to also, remember the medicine of our ancestors, and where, our teachers, whether they're no longer living or whether they're fully thriving and alive and well, um, and just, speak into the energy that, you know, I've had the privilege to receive so many different teachings and downloads from so many magical and marvelous people on our planet that, to have the opportunity to assimilate and to not only receive their wisdom teachings but then to also take them forward and to integrate them in my own way is really delicious and an opportune time. And so I'm super grateful for all of my teachers, and however they've manifested throughout the years. And um, some of the online offerings that are going on since social distancing and quarantines have been implemented all around the world. I've been offering online breathworks and online shamanic breathwork journeys using Zoom, and they're all currently donation based, or they have a sliding scale registration, and they've been super juicy and super rich. And, again, it speaks into the magic of being in a time that is not a time, in a place that is not a place. And how, when we show up with our breath, with our bodies, with music and intention, that magic happens, and that transformation happens. And so it's been
Yeah.
really beautiful to watch that. But another offering that I'm super excited about is Transforming with Tarot. And this was a co-creation that came alongside a really good friend and colleague of mine, Abby Steinsack. And she and I love the tarot, and we're tarot buddies, so to speak. And we were just within these last couple of weeks, we've been pulling our own cards and calling each other and being like, "Hey, pull some cards for me," or like, "What do you think this lineup means or this arrangement means?" And so through those conversations, her and I birthed this sort of mystery school. This journey, this initiatory journey that we really feel encompasses the energies that are really heavy and prevalent on our planet right now. And so we'll be doing a 3-week journey, where we'll be meeting once over each week to really dive into the initiations and the mystery of the Hanged Man, the Death card, and Temperance. And so we can learn and remember the language of our own soul, and use that connection with our own self and our own inner wisdom to discern what needs to change, what needs to evolve, what's ready to die and be reborn within our own stories, and how does that overlay into the collective. And so I'm really excited about that, and it's going to be a really great cauldron of people and great containers. So yeah.
That all sounds so juicy. I'm so glad that you're doing that, and I look forward to more collaborations with you in the future as well, whether it's different topics or maybe we'll have other portals that we'll be like, channeling from, or who knows what.
Absolutely.
I'm just
Absolutely.
open. I'm open to
Absolutely.
the universe to use us in whatever way it wants to. So
Mhm. Well, you've got such a wealth of resources and knowledge and teachings all of your own, some that you've inherited and others that you just totally downloaded and allowed to come through you. And so I would love to co-create something juicy, and I'm sure we will. I think this is foreshadowing that, this little
yeah.
conversation and dialogue. So yeah.
Exactly. Oh, well, what a joy it's been today to be with you and to bring all this through. And I can't wait to rewatch it because, like you said, I can't even say exactly what we were talking about. I just was in the feels, right, in all the feels. And yeah, and so thank you so much again for being with me today and for sharing yourself and your work, and the way that the universe manifests through you uniquely, like no one else can. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Sending you my love.
Thank you. Love you.